Well, right now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Brussels seeking to reassure NATO allies that the United States remains committed to the alliance. The timing, though, a bit maybe precarious as world leaders continue to speak out against yesterday's tariff announcement. Joining me now from the State Department is Deputy Spokesperson Tommy Pigott. Tommy, thank you so much for being here. Let's start with Secretary Rubio's trip. We heard him earlier today saying that the U.S. is more committed than ever to NATO. Meanwhile, we're hearing U.S. allies around the world talk about the potential impacts of yesterday's tariff announcement. What message does it send to U.S. allies when you hear Rubio talking about its commitment to NATO, but also talking about needing more money and essentially more tariffs, which could hurt our international relations with some of our closest allies?
Well, I think ultimately you see those two things right there. You say that we're committed to NATO, as Secretary Rubio has said. We need to see a strong, fully capable alliance, and that's what that call to increase defense spending is all about. Having that strong and capable alliance, having partners we can work with. Ultimately, that's what we want to see. We want to see a strong and capable NATO. That's what Secretary Rubio has been calling for. That's what President Trump has been calling for. And in fact, we've seen several NATO allies actually take pledges to increase their defense spending. And when it comes to the tariff announcement, ultimately, you have to remember the two fundamental pillars that are driving this announcement. First, putting the American worker first, and second, our national security. When you have a strong America, when you have a manufacturing base that is based in the United States, when you have the ability for workers to see their real wages rise, get good paying jobs, see wealth creation in this country, that creates a strong America. And when you have a strong America, you can have peace through strength. And when you have peace through strength, that not only benefits the United States, it benefits all of our allies across the world.
And we also know today that Rubio met with Denmark's foreign minister. Was Greenland discussed at all?
I don't want to get into ongoing dynamic conversations. I think ultimately what we're going to see, and again, the president has made this clear, the Arctic region is incredibly important to the United States. We want to see mutual prosperity with ourselves and the people of Greenland. And again, that Arctic region is incredibly important to the security of the United States.
But there was a readout of that conversation. It talked about how the two leaders discussed U.S.-European alliances, economic strength, a number of other things. But, I mean, it was pretty obvious to those who have been hearing what the rhetoric is coming from Donald Trump in the White House that it seems like a pretty big omission not to have Greenland mentioned specifically.
Well, look, ultimately, as we just were discussing, this trip to the NATO Foreign Ministers Conference is about making sure we have a strong and capable alliance. It's about making sure we're seeing those increases in defense spending. It's about making sure NATO is strong and fully capable. That's what we're seeing. Those are discussions that we're having. That's why Secretary Rubio is in Europe right now. And we're, like I said, seeing commitments from allies in NATO about increasing that defense spending. So that's what he's discussing there.
All right, fair enough. Turning to deportations here at home, obviously a huge issue that's driving some of our domestic policies. Does the administration believe that non-citizens with legal rights to be here in the U.S., talking about student visas, temporary or permanent status, do they have a right to due process before being removed from the country?
Well, look, ultimately, when it comes to our visa process, what I can say, speaking generally, is that there's a process before when someone applies for a visa, attesting to what they're going to do. There are certain regulations, a vetting procedure. That vetting procedure continues when someone is within the country, continues when someone has that visa. And if they do something that's contrary to what they told us when they apply for that visa, if they break our laws, if they violate the conditions of how they have that visa, they may see that visa revoked. Again, I can't speak to specific cases, but ultimately what we're seeing is the enforcing of our laws and making sure that that vetting process, again, continues not only when someone applies for a visa, but continues when they're in the United States and when they have that visa.
Yeah. And keeping in mind the specific case is not something that you can get into, but I am interested to know what is the relationship right now between the U.S. and El Salvador. Could Secretary Rubio simply pick up the phone and ask President Bukele to send somebody back from an El Salvadorian prison if there is, in fact, a mistake made?
Well, look, again, I don't want to get into specifics or speak about specific cases. What I can say is we are seeing partnership across our region to end illegal immigration and combat transnational crime. What we saw in the previous 4 years leading up to this administration is the worst border crisis in U.S. history. Transnational crime not only affecting the United States, but all of our partners in the region. And part of the reason why we're seeing this enthusiasm, this huge willingness to work with the United States on combating this is because our partners in the region and around the world are all affected by transnational crime, are all affected and want to end illegal immigration. We are partnering with those countries. We're going to continue partnering with those countries, and we thank those partner countries that are taking steps to combat transnational crime and to end illegal immigration.
All right, Deputy Spokesperson for the State Department, Tommy Pigott. Tommy, appreciate your time on a busy day. Thank you.